Welcome to lesson 135, graph quadratic functions parabola. So in the previous video, we just talked about identifying parts of a parabola. Now we're going to come through and graph parts of a parabola. And I'm going to write some instructions at the end of the video for you to put a parabola into your calculator. So if you have your TI-84s, definitely grab them, and we'll talk about that at the end of the video. Here's our objective. The vocabulary we've already seen from the other day. Okay, so this formula is used to find the vertex. So when we're dealing with a quadratic equation or function, we're given ax squared plus bx plus c. And a here in this particular equation happens to be 1. So if you take negative b over 2a, you can figure out the vertex. The x-coordinate of the vertex is 1. And then you stick that 1 back into the original equation and get the y-coordinate of the vertex. Remember, the vertex is a point. So the vertex given by the point v is 1, 2 for this particular quadratic function. Okay, so that is that. Okay, so pick up your TI-84s right now, and what you're going to want to do is type these buttons in if you have a TI-84. So I'm going to write them in black at the top. Up at the top left is a button called y equals, and I'll put the buttons you push in squares. Push y equals, then you look for a button, and once on the screen it'll say y1, y2, y3, y4, and all of that. You look for a button that says x, t, theta, n. That's a 0 with a goofy looking line through it, and then n. That will bring you x. Then you hit the x squared button, which is on the left side right near the 7. Then you want to hit the minus symbol, the subtract symbol. Hit that button, not the negative, but the subtract symbol. Type 8. Again, you're going to hit x, t, theta, n. And then the plus button. And then 12. 1, 2. And then what you're going to want to do is hit second, which is the blue button, and hit graph. Above the graph button is one of the top gray buttons at the very top, above the arrow buttons. Above that says table. So when you hit second, you bring up all the blue functions on your TI-84. If you do that, you will get a table of values. So this will bring up your table. And so I'm going to do numbers that I can easily graph. I'm going to pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And that will give us the numbers 5, 0, -3, -4, -3, and 0. Usually what you would want to do is pick numbers on the left side of 0 and on the right side of 0. But that on the graphs that I chose, that just did not work out. So I will put it in here manually. 1 squared minus 8 times 1 plus 12 will give you 5. If you can type it in the calculator just like it's written. 2 squared minus 8 times 2 plus 12. 3 squared minus 8 times 3 plus 12. And then 4 squared minus 8 times 4 will give you 12, and then so on and so forth. This is how you would do it by hand. But since if you have a graphing calculator, you can just type the function in and get these points. So now come over to plot our points. So at 1, we were at 5. 1, 5. That's our first point. At 2, we were at 0. At 3, we're at negative 3. At 4, we were at negative 4. 4 at negative 4. 5 was 3. And since a parabola makes a U shape, 6 goes to 0. So here's what your parabola looks like, a U. And it keeps going on and on and on forever. That's why we put the arrow here, and I ran out of space. I should have probably moved that graph a little bit over, but I wanted to show that. So the vertex. The vertex is given by the minimum 4, negative 4. And remember, the vertex is a point, so it needs an x-coordinate and a y-coordinate. And that is our first example. Okay, welcome to example 2. So, if you have a TI-84, great. If not, don't worry about it. I'll put the numbers in there for you. So, again, hit the Y equals button, push that, and you'll see a screen that comes up Y1, Y2, Y3, Y4, all the way down to Y6 or 7. You hit that button, then you hit the negative symbol, which is down by the decimal, to the right, to the left of the enter key. So this is your negative. This is how you get negatives in there. Negative 1 divided by 4. And I should probably put all of those in boxes. Xt theta n is a key. So you had to hit each key individually. Then hit your x squared to get it the square. The xt theta n is at the very top, right under the black button that says mode. It's next to the green button that says alpha. So it's at the top left side of the calculator. The x squared is right next to the 7 button. It's 1 up from the 7 button. Then what we have? We have plus 3. Then we hit xt theta n again to get the second x, and then minus. This is not negative, this is minus. This is an operation, not a sign. Okay, so when we do that, again, you do not need to hit enter or anything. Just hit second. That's the big blue button that brings up all the blue buttons on your calculator. And hit graph, which is at the top right. The very top row of buttons are gray, and then the one on the right says graph. Second will bring up the one that says table, and then you'll see what we're going to plot here is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so 0 is negative 9, 1 is negative 6 1/4. On your calculator it says 6.25, but we know that that's a quarter. 2 is negative 4, 3 is negative 2 1/4, 4 is negative 1, 5 is negative 1/4, and 6 is 0. So I may not plot the quarter pieces just because it might be a little weird. So if you're doing this by hand, you would just do negative 1/4 times 0 squared plus 3 times 0 minus 9, and so on with the rest of them. And I always say, when you substitute, please make sure that you use parentheses for the numbers to keep the sign straight, because some of your math teachers will want you to put negative numbers in there. But we've used a calculator to get the table so that we can plot this on a graph that I plotted. Because if you didn't know any better, you would put 3 points to the left of 0 and 3 points to the right of 0, and then see what you got once you plot it, if you did not have a calculator. But you should get the same results as long as your math is good. And then Okay, so 0 at -9. 1 is at 6 1/4. -6 1/4. So it's about somewhere right there. 2 is at -4. 3 is at -2 1/4, which is below 2, probably like right there. 4 is at -1. 5 is at -1/4, and 6 is at 0, and then 7 is at -1. So our turning point, our vertex, is actually at 6 0. And how do we know that? On a calculator, I have the luck of seeing that 7 is -1/4. So as you can see, the numbers start to repeat. So this is our turning point. And so once I put the graph through there like that, it will look like, and then the numbers will repeat themselves. Something like that. And if you wanted to graph this to see what the graph looked like, you would just hit the graph key and wait for a while, and then you will see the graph. There are other tricks with the calculator I'll show you later on, but if you hit the window button, which is 3 buttons to the left of the graph button, you change your X min, your X max. Don't mess with X scale, but your Y min and Y max, if you change those, make the numbers bigger, you'll see more of the graph. Because it's set at -10, +10, -10, and +10. And it's just like this graph here. And this is what you will see on the graph. But if you change the numbers to like the -50 to +50, if you make your X like -50 to +50, and your Y +50 to -50, you'll get more of the graph on there. But that's some trick you can do with the calculator in Windows. So that was example 2. And so those were our 2 examples. So I want you to try to practice problems. If you have a calculator, it'll make it easy. You can just put it in and just plot it. If you don't, do it by hand. It's always good to do it by hand to get the practice. So try those, and I will see you at the end of the video for a recap. All right, because I used the calculator, I'm just going to bring up the ones that make the most sense. Okay, so -2 is at 7. -1 is at -5. 0 is at -9. 1 is at -5. And then 2 is at 7. So let's plot our points. -2, 7 is here. -1, -5. Ooh, that dropped off big time, didn't it? 0 is at -9. 1 is at -5. 2 is at 7. So here's a little hint. And I'll talk about this. And we see our vertex on here, our turning point, which is right here, given by the point 0, -9. That's our vertex. So this is what I want to tell you. When your A gets bigger than 1, your parabola gets skinnier and skinnier. When your A is less than 1 but bigger than 0, your parabola gets fatter and fatter. So your A is greater than 1. So if your A is 2, your parabola will be very skinny compared to a regular where A equals 1. If A equals 1, you'll get a standard U, whether it's up or down. But the bigger your number gets, the skinnier your parabola gets. And you see that in this curve as compared to the other curves on the examples. Okay, so I'm going to use the calculator to graph these points. And if you do it by hand, that's fine. So the points the calculator gave me was 0, -5, 1, -3, 2, -5. -1 and 3 happen to be at -11, and we don't have room for that, so let's just plot the points. 0, -5, 1, -3, 2 is -5. And -1 was at 11, and -3 was at -11 as well. So your U looks something like this. Okay, so our vertex is given by the point 1, -3. And for our final problem, I have 6 points I can use. I'll use -5, -4, -3, -2, -1. Okay, so we got 0, 1, 4, and 1 and 4. Okay. So -5 is at 4. -5 is at 4. -4 is at 1. -3 is at 0. -2 is at 1. And -1 is at 4. So our graph will look something like this. And there you go. So I use the calculator. If you don't have a calculator, you just have to do it by hand, and you saw that in the examples. So practice, and I hope that your graphs look like this. It would be good if you had some graph paper to actually, because graph paper looks like this, and you can use each dot as one, and then go ahead and graph your functions and to see what they look like. So go to the dollar store. If a dollar store is close to you, get some graph paper for $1, and go ahead and do this. You're going to need some graph paper when we get into geometry. If you use it now, it would be just easier just to plot the parabolas. So thank you for watching the video. I hope you have a TI-84. You can always buy one used. You do not have to buy a brand new one. Lots of college students, when they're done with their math classes, will sell them. You can find them on eBay, used. I bought a used one myself. It cost me like $65. And that's what I have. So thank you for watching the video, and I hope to see you on more videos in the future.